So we are trying to learn about how to help one another grow as followers of Jesus, and as we do that in Urban Life, one of the things that we're doing is reading through the book of 1 Corinthians, which is a letter in the New Testament written by the Apostle Paul, one of Jesus' key guys, to a group of Christians, a gang of believers who lived in a city called Corinth. And we're trying to first of all understand, who were these people? What's the situation that this letter was being written to? Well, Corinth was an ancient city in Greece, and this city was significant, and it was cosmopolitan, and it was notorious as well, and here's why. It was significant because of where it was. I mean, you look on a map, if you Google it, you can find where Corinth was. It was just at the point where this Greek peninsula narrowed in the middle, which meant that everything north to south had to pass through this area, but also pretty much everything east to west did as well, because the boats would come in bringing trade and various other things. They would come into the nearby port, they would travel across and then get on their way from the other port on the other side and go on and out. And in fact, nowadays they built a canal through this narrow area so that boats can travel through. In those days they hadn't done that, although they sometimes would find a way to drag the boats across. But this was much quicker than going all the way around the bottom, and safer as well. So it was a significant place. In fact, so significant that there was a lot of fighting about it. The place had been knocked down and then rebuilt again. Rome had knocked it down and obliterated it when they were fighting the Greeks, when it was a Greek city. But then later, when they ran the place, 100 odd years later, they rebuilt it. Julius Caesar, in fact, it was who rebuilt it just before he was assassinated, because again, it was just so significant that once they got control of the region, they wanted a city there. So they rebuilt it, they gave it special status. It was a Roman city, which meant that even though it was in the old Greek area, anyone who lived there and was born there was seen as a Roman citizen. So that was a really prestigious thing to happen. So for all of those kinds of reasons, it was significant, and it was cosmopolitan, as you might imagine, with all that travel, that trade going through, and it was notorious. Again, not surprisingly, that kind of place, people passing through, travelling, kind of people staying just in town for 1 or 2 nights, that kind of area became pretty notorious for all kinds of reasons. And it was helped by the fact that there was also a number of different pagan religions that were centred there, including the Greek goddess Artemis, who was the goddess of love. Part of the worship of her involved going to temple prostitutes, and there was said to be 1,000 prostitutes there. We don't know whether that was an exaggeration or not, but still, a lot of them. And it became known as that kind of a place, a really immoral place. People even used the word, to be a Corinthian, to be an immoral person. It found its way into the language of the day. So for all of these reasons, it seems that Paul thought this was a worthwhile place to go and see if you could start a church. Not an easy place, but a significant place, because of course, if you could have all the trade travelling around everywhere, why not the good news of Jesus as well? And in Acts chapter 18, we see a little bit of what happened there. We see some things going on in Acts chapter 18, and the church in Corinth was born over a period of about 18 months and 2 years. And we saw some interesting things when we talked about this, because we see how you've got a group of people, just ordinary jobs. Even Paul just slotted into his normal trade of making some tents, along with Priscilla and Aquila, who were there as well, living out their lives in normal jobs, trying to persuade people to follow Jesus, trying to persuade people about who Jesus was, facing positive and negative situations. Sometimes there was welcome, sometimes there was hostility, but all the while just living out their lives, confident that God had his people in that place, and that he was working through his word in that location, and over time they saw a church emerge. And that's an encouragement to us wherever we are. To us 20 odd centuries later, here we are, living in a world that has got all kinds of different beliefs, all kinds of different things going on. We live in a city that is fairly central in the UK. It's probably not as central and significant as Corinth, but it's a centre for a lot of industry. There's a lot of major travel routes pass through here, and we're seeking to live out our lives in our ordinary ways, trying to persuade people that Jesus is a significant person, and maybe more significant than they've ever realised before, and confident that God knows what he's doing, and seeking to see his church grow and develop. And we want to encourage each other with that actually we can keep on going, keep on trusting, and look to see what God will do as he blesses a city full of all different kinds of people. So that's what we've been studying.